I'm pleased to introduce Clayton M. Christensen, our commencement speaker today. Professor Christensen is the Kim B. Clark Professor of Business Administration at Harvard Business School and the founder of the Christensen Institute. Often regarded as one of the world's top experts on innovation and growth, Christensen introduced the theory of disruptive innovation and has founded a number of successful companies and organizations that apply these theories. Clayton has long been a supporter of WGU and the university's learning model. Please welcome Clayton Christensen.
I'm honored to be with you today. As I have tried to prepare my remarks, I realize that you and I have a lot in common. I was raised in Rose Park on the right side of the tracks in Salt Lake City. I went to West High School and graduated from there. At age 38, with 4 kids, I lost my job. And I was at a point in my life where I just needed to support my family better than we had before. And so I went back to school, hoping that it would lead me to a new career as a teacher. You have had a lot of responsibility in caring for your family as you study here. And I had a family that I needed to care for as well. But oh my gosh, I am so grateful that I went to school again to get a better job and to be able to support my family in a better way. And so we do have a lot in common. I'd like to talk with you a bit today about smallness and bigness in mankind. In my profession, my job is to identify questions and puzzles and paradoxes that have not yet been resolved. And my job has been to resolve them as best I can. And one of the questions that I posed at the beginning was, I wonder why success is so hard to sustain. So if you look across the sweep of business history, most companies which at one point were widely regarded as unassailably successful, a decade or two later you find them in the middle of the pack and often at the bottom of the heap. And so the puzzle was, what makes success so hard to sustain at the level of corporations as well as individuals? And I came to a strange conclusion, and that is, what causes successful companies or people to fail is they have a small view of mankind, not a big view. And they look at the entities that are big and successful and try to emulate them. In the end, however, it's really people that start with small problems that grow, that become successful. So, for example, a number of years ago, a company called Nucor built a plant. You see it on the left-hand side of the road as you go north near Tremonton. And they had a new technology for making steel. They could bring scrap, melt it, and reform it into shapes. And the only product that they could make in the beginning was rebar that is used to build our inside of cement when you're building structures. There was another company in Utah called US Steel. They had a huge plant in Geneva. And the people at US Steel looked down at Nucor and their new technology. And all they could do was make rebar, which is at the low end. And it made no sense to them. And so they ignored it. But Nucor, instead, began making small products and simple ideas, and then they made it better and better and better. And as they got ever more capable, the reaction of US Steel was still not to look at them down market, but rather to try to see if they could make even bigger scale for even bigger people. And ultimately, Nucor has been wildly successful by looking at the bottom of the market as a platform to grow. Some of you know a company called Toyota. When I was in high school and college, Toyota was invading North America, but they invaded North America not with Lexuses, but with a rusty little subcompact called a Corona. And what they did was they made a car so affordable and accessible that the low end of humanity, people we call college students, could own a car. And while Toyota was starting at the bottom of the market, General Motors and Ford had a different view of success. And that is, we have to make even bigger cars for even bigger people. And they looked at Toyota coming from below, and it made no sense to pay attention to them. And then Toyota went from a Corona to a Corolla to a Tercel, Corolla, Camry, Avalon, 4Runner, Sequoia, and then the Lexus. And yet General Motors and Ford, framing goodness as success, couldn't see it coming until it's all over. And this is what I mean by the smallness of mankind, the view that we will only be success if we are better than them. And a much better way to view mankind is I might be better than them at one point, but what's different is they want to improve to get better. And taking that view, they might be good, but we want to grow and we want to be better, makes a different view of mankind. And that brings a very different view of mankind, a bigness of mankind. And the premise is very different. We might look at a person who seems to be better than I am, they know more than we do. But that wasn't always so. When we were born, we were all the same. And other people might have learned earlier than we, but if they learn it, we can learn it too. And we need to view our success not as a static view, but rather a dynamic view. If I can't do something, it doesn't condemn me to being mediocre in the rest of my life. Rather, it just gives me an opportunity to learn. At age 38, I learned how to do research and to be a teacher. You guys, at the same age, have learned how to be accountants and nurses and engineers and business people, and I congratulate you. If you keep thinking about the view of mankind, that it's a dynamic view, that you can spend the rest of your life doing better and better, you will bless mankind in many ways. Another element of the bigness of mankind that I think is important is that learning is not a static event, but rather learning is something that we ought to do for the rest of our lives. And it isn't entailing just focusing on us to learn and be skilled, but rather it requires that we teach each other and help each other as they try to learn. Because as we teach, we learn. And I think an important element of the business model here is that we help each other to be better. Another thing that's important for me as I look at the bigness of mankind is that this is God's view of mankind as well. God did not envision that some of us would be bolted to the floor of mankind, unable to succeed, while others have flexibility and upward mobility. That's not God's view of mankind at all. His view is in the bigness of mankind. that we can become what he is. And he's given that potential to every one of us. And that's why it's so important that we keep learning. He envisions that each of us can know what he knows. Now, as you can see with this color, I live in traditional higher education at a university called Harvard. And I'm grateful that I work there. It's a good school. But we have a smallness view of mankind. The minute you get the ACC or the GRE, it determines whether you can come and join us or you can't. We keep score. We figure out what is the average GMAT and GRE for the students who go to Stanford and Yale and all of these other lesser-known schools. And we have to keep score, because if we have bigger scores, we're better than them. And in order to succeed, we have to be better than others. But that's not what bigness is about in any way. We need to help everybody keep learning for the rest of their lives so that we all can become the people that God wants us to become. And of all of the universities that I know of who have succumbed to the view of the smallness of mankind, there is one big exception, and that is Western Governors. Everything I feel with you is based upon the bigness of mankind. Everything that I feel is that it's dynamic, it's not static. People can learn for the rest of their lives. Many of you, like I, can choose to take a different career in halfway through and bring happiness to our families. And so I give my honest congratulations and gratitude to so many of the people here who have sacrificed so much to create this marvelous university. Now, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to close by telling you how I learned about the bigness of mankind. One day, a number of years ago, I was driving to school, and about 6 a.m., all of a sudden, I had a feeling in my mind and in my heart that something important is going to happen to me, Clay Christensen. And there was no specificity about what that was. But it was a very clear feeling that I was going to be given a responsibility in the not too distant future. And so as I continued to drive to work, I wondered, what might that be? And then a couple of weeks later, there was an announcement that somebody in my field was going to leave their employment. And I put two and two together and realized they're going to give that to me. And so I started to prepare myself and figured out what else I would want to put into place and who I asked to work with me. And then when the time came to announce who the person was, they chose another person and not me. And I wondered, why in the world would they have done that to me? Because I looked at my resume versus his, and there was no question that I was better. But, and it put me on I just couldn't figure out what had gone wrong with me. And then after about 2 months of trying to figure it out, I had an important insight, and that is that God doesn't hire any accountants in heaven. And what I mean by that is you and I, because we have finite minds, we have to aggregate in order to understanding what's going on. So in companies that I'm affiliated with, we send out invoices and we receive invoices many times every day. And we can't keep track of all of the individual data in each of these invoices. And so thank goodness we have accountants. And they can add up all of those numbers and give us a single number that allows us to say we're doing better or we're doing worse. Because we have limited minds, we need numbers, and we have to aggregate things in order to get a sense of what's going on. And we have a sense, because we aggregate, that the world is organized in a hierarchical way, so that people who they are responsible for bigger numbers are more important in an organization than people who are responsible for smaller numbers. But then I realized that God has an infinite mind. And because of his capability, God doesn't have to aggregate people and turn those into numbers in order to understand completely what's going on in this world. Because he has an infinite mind, he doesn't need to count us as numbers. Then I realized, oh my gosh, so if that means that God only looks at people and not numbers, when I die and I have my interview with him, he's not going to say to me, oh my goodness, the important Professor Clayton Christensen from the Harvard Business School. God's not going to say that. Instead, what he's going to say to me is, all right, Clay, do you remember I put you in this situation? Can we just talk about what you did to help those people that you were with to become better people? And then if you remember I put you in this situation, and let's talk about the people there that you helped to become better people. And then if you remember I gave you 5 wonderful children, let's talk about what you did to help them become better people. And I realized that God will measure my life by the individual people who I help to become better people. That's the way he will measure my life. And when I realized that, I realized that I need every day to find opportunities to help people that I work with and study with to become better people. Because that is the way God will measure my life. And I want to congratulate you, first to the faculty, because you have such great opportunity to help the people that you work with to be better people. And you students who have worked to help the people that you work with to become better people. You have chosen magnificent professions, and I thank you. God bless you. I pray that God will be with you as you try to become bigger and bigger and better people. Thank you.
Thank you, Clayton. I think he captures the essence of WGU and all of you.